Good morning. This is a recording for Sunday, April 28th. In our last session, we talked about barriers to building shame resilience, insulation, and separation. We talked about the fact that we live in the culture of us versus them, and that creates all sorts of stigmatized issues that inevitably bring up shame in us or bring up blame in us. Today, let's talk about fear, as it is another big reason we insulate. Sometimes we don't turn away from people because their experiences are so stigmatized and socially unacceptable, but simply because their experiences are too scary. Brené Brown shares her own story. She says, I first became aware of my own fear-based insulating when my husband Steve was in his residency. He was spending the month in the neonatal intensive care unit. On the nights he came home, he would tell me stories. I found the courage to listen only because I knew he needed a safe place to process his grief and celebrate his successes. After a couple of weeks of stories about dangerous deliveries, dying babies, and grieving families, I became less empathic and more freaked out. Of course, it didn't help that I was 6 months pregnant with my first baby. I started asking him questions about each family, mostly questions about their race, income, and medical history. Fearing I would seem insensitive, I would disguise the questions as concern and interest. I just want to picture them, I would say. Do they look like anyone we know? Are they our age? It must be expensive. Do they have insurance? Is there a medical reason this happened? One day, sensing Steve's frustration with my litany of bullshit questions, I did away with the niceties and cut straight to the demographics. What race? Poor, drug users, prenatal care, genetic problems. Steve looked at me and said, No, Brené, they look just like us. This happens to all types of people, even people just like us. I started crying. No, it can't. I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to use every existing system of difference to separate me from those people. And if by some strange chance they matched us on the descriptors, I would move to the next step. Well then, what did they do wrong? After Steve confronted me about my efforts to separate myself from those people in the neonatal intensive care unit, I realized that I often rely on that technique when I watch the evening news. If I'm in the kitchen, cooking and listening to the news on TV, in the living room, and a horrible story about rape, murder, or child abduction comes on, I often fly into the living room, whisk in hand, to see what the victim looks like and where it happened. The second I spot something different from me, or a neighborhood far from mine, I feel a little less fearful. If we've spent our lives continually insulating ourselves from the people who are suffering and surviving great losses, what happens when something happens to us? I think most of us turn on ourselves. What did I do to deserve this? Why me? This happened because I did something bad or something wrong. Once we convince ourselves that things like this don't happen to people like me, then when it does happen, it means we have done something terribly wrong. We've been kicked out of the group that kept us safe, that mythical group that always escapes tragedy. That's why people who survive cancer, women who survive sexual assault, adults who were once homeless, parents who have lost children and families who have been affected by acts of violence often tell me two things. Before it happened, I never believed it could happen to me. It only happened to other people. And you never know, it can happen to anyone. I just want to be there for others who are going through the same thing. And it's hard. We don't want to connect with people who are in pain, especially if we believe they deserve their pain or if their pain is too scary for us. We just don't want to reach out. It feels risky. Just by associating with them, we could either end up in the same other pile or be forced to acknowledge that bad things happen to people like us. I hear the same thing again and again from the women who are willing to connect. It's not easy. The women who take the casseroles when people are gossiping and judging, or the women who walk through their own fear to comfort something else, aren't superheroes. They are ordinary people who sometimes have to force themselves to do it. It doesn't always come naturally, but they all say it gets easier with practice. Brené Brown continues, my mom is one of those women. I have very vivid memories of my mom being the one sitting next to the neighbor who was in crisis. And not just the acceptable crisis either. I grew up in the suburbs, and trust me, there were some very traumatic events that didn't fit that cookie-cutter life that we were all supposed to be living. I even remember being embarrassed sometimes because my mother was the one taking the casserole to the people who everyone was talking about. Or she would invite the family who was swirling horrible rumors to our house for dinner. I didn't understand it then, but now I get it. My mom grew up with several boxes checked on the other list. My grandmother was an alcoholic. She was an incredibly generous and compassionate person who struggled for years with addiction. Back then, alcoholism was misunderstood and the source of even more shame than it is today, especially for women. On top of that, my grandparents divorced when my mom was in the third grade. My mom has openly talked to us about the difficulty of reconciling her life with the social community expectations that defined the 1950s. However, somewhere along the line, she found the courage to talk openly about her experiences. By doing this, she realized that she was not alone in this struggle and made the decision to get out from under the shame that was heaped on her by the 1950s. In doing so, she charted a new course for my siblings and me. I think the most important thing she has taught me about reaching out to others in crisis is this. You do it because that's the person you want to be. You do it because that could have been me, and one day it could just as easily be you. What a story. What a reflection. So today, let's do another full loving kindness practice to remind ourselves that there is no us versus them. There is just people, and everybody is in it together. Anything can happen to anybody, and it's not wrong. Remember, we all share our basic humanity. We all have basic goodness within us. And we all have a simple wish to be happy, healthy, and live at ease. So take a comfortable position and take a few moments to settle. Settle into your body, into your heart, your mind. Settle into this moment, right here, right now. Your breath natural, soft. See if you can find a sense of spaciousness in your breathing, letting all the experiences of the present moment to flow through you as energy that they are, without struggle. Now bring your attention to your heart center. Maybe put one or both hands on top of your heart. And gently start repeating after me, silently or out loud. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well in body and mind. May I feel loved, cared for, at ease. May I know I am enough. May I know I am never alone. May I touch deep, natural peace. If you're ready to include other people in your practice, think of somebody very dear to you and start sending loving kindness to them. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well in body and mind. May they feel loved, cared for, at ease. May they know they are enough. May they know they are never alone. May they touch deep, natural peace. Now think of a neutral person in your life, a familiar stranger, somebody you may see often but don't know their name. Remember, they too want to be happy, healthy, and free, just like you. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well in body and mind. May they feel loved, cared for, at ease. May they know they are enough. May they know they are never alone. May they touch deep, natural peace. And now, if you can, think of somebody whose experiences scare you a little bit or a lot, and that's why you don't want to think about them. You don't want to be associated with that person. See if you can send loving kindness to them. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be well in body and mind. May they feel loved, cared for, at ease. May they know they are enough. May they know they are never alone. May they touch deep, natural peace. And now think of all the people who inhabit this planet. Just like you, they all want to feel safe, happy, strong, and live with ease. Let's send loving kindness to all of us. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we be well in body and mind. May we feel loved, cared for, at ease. May we know we are enough. May we know we are never alone. May we all touch deep, natural peace. As you gently let go of your practice, scan your body, as always, noticing what's going on for you right now, physically, emotionally, mentally? How are you really? And as you go through your day today, I invite you to continue with this reflection. Do you sometimes insulate because somebody's experience is too scary for you to reach out, to connect? What can you do about this? Can you still reach out? Because in Brené Brown's mom's words, that's the person you want to be. So you do it because that could have been me, that could have been you, that could have been anyone who you know. Thank you so much for being here today. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you tomorrow.